Hi everyone. Tonight we're going to take a long, quiet walk into the corners of the mind, the kind of walk that no one takes with you. Not even the people who love you most. I want you to imagine this. It's late. The windows are shut. Somewhere. In the background, a neighbor's dog whimpers. And you're lying awake again. It's not your back pain tonight, or the creaky ceiling fan. It's something less obvious. A kind of hunger. Not for food, not even for company, just for something. Sensual desire doesn't always wear lingerie. Sometimes it wears the glow of your smartphone screen. It smells like your favorite late-night snack. It sounds like a dopamine ping from a social app. It's so sneaky, and the worst part, it feels good for about 7 seconds. Then it leaves a film behind, something sticky. You can't scrub off. I used to think I was above this, that I didn't chase pleasure. But I'd catch myself scrolling endlessly at 2 a.m., searching for videos of lives that looked better than mine. Younger skin, better lighting, people who laughed more. And the more I watched, the less I liked the sound of my own breath in the dark. There's this thing monks call the rope of craving. Every time you follow a desire, big or small, it's like tightening a noose. One video becomes 5. One cookie becomes the whole tray. One thought about her becomes an hour of imaginary conversation in your head. And just like that, the day is gone. The funny thing is, desire doesn't ask your permission. It just shows up like a cat on your windowsill, rubs against your mind, demands to be let in. But if you let it in every time, your home stops being yours. There's an old age wisdom from Zen temples. The more you fill the bowl, the less taste the soup has. I didn't get that at first, but now I do. Because at 70, you start to feel the bloating, just in your belly, but in your spirit. And you know what? Simplicity becomes seductive. Silence becomes delicious. Boredom, it becomes freedom. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying desire is evil. You're allowed to love cake. You're allowed to want to look good, feel good, or kiss someone slowly. But when your sense of wholeness depends on scratching that itch, you're not living, you're negotiating with your cravings. There's this odd academic phrase I stumbled on once. Desire is the root of perceptual distortion. I laughed when I first read it, but now I see its truth. When you want something badly enough, your brain turns into a lawyer. It argues for the need, justifies the behavior, and completely erases consequence. Like that one time I thought I deserved a new gadget because I was feeling down. I spent 3 hours researching it, bought it, unboxed it, admired it, and within a week, forgot I owned it. You see, desire promises you something bigger than what it delivers. It's like a movie trailer, loud, flashy, and better than the actual film. And over time, the soul becomes numb. Because if every moment is spent chasing that next hit, you miss the stillness in between, the real richness of life. Let me offer you a quirky thought. Squirrels never forget where they bury their acorns. But we humans, we forget where we bury our peace. And most of the time, we bury it under layers of unnecessary wanting. So what do I do now when the itch comes? I breathe, I watch it. I say, there you are again. I don't feed it cookies or YouTube or dopamine hits. I feed it awareness. And 8 times out of 10, it goes away on its own. Desire is just a guest. It knocks. You don't have to open the door. You don't even have to say no. Just don't say yes too quickly. And sometimes, when I sit quietly enough, long enough, without feeding the hunger. I find that what I actually craved wasn't cake or comfort. It was clarity. And that, my friend, never comes in a wrapper. There's something strange about hatred. It's not always loud. Sometimes it simmers, quiet, like an old kettle left on a stove that no one remembers turning on. That's how it felt the day I realized I was still mad at someone who hadn't been in my life for over 20 years. I was brushing my teeth when it hit me. Just a flash of their name in my head, and boom, jaw clenched, breath quickened, heart skipping in that uncomfortable way it does when resentment comes out of storage. I chuckled, mouth full of toothpaste, thinking, are we really doing this? Again, ill will is clever. It doesn't wear a red flag. It wears old memories. And if you're not careful, it starts redecorating your mind like it still owns the lease. You ever notice how a bitter thought can ruin your entire day? One minute you're sipping tea, the next you're reliving an argument from 1993. There's a teaching from the Thai forest monks that stuck with me. Carrying anger is like picking up a burning coal to throw at someone, but you're the one who gets burned first. Now, that sounds poetic, but it's also biologically accurate. Cortisol spikes. Blood pressure rises. Your immune system takes a hit. Meanwhile, the person you're mad at, probably watching reruns and eating grapes. Here's the overtly academic phrase. I want to throw in just to sound fancy. Residual emotional encoding leads to psychosomatic strain. Translation: holding grudges messes up your body. And if you're over 70, your body is already trying hard just to show up for you every day. Why make it fight ghosts? There was an old man I used to see at the park. Every morning, 6:45 sharp, he'd walk with this fierce intensity, like he had somewhere to be. One day I asked him, "What gets you out here so early?" He looked at me and said, "To forget a woman who broke my heart 50 years ago." Then he grinned and added, "It's working very slowly." We laughed, but I got the message. Movement helps. Not just the physical kind, but emotional movement too. Forgiveness is not a one-time decision, it's a direction. You walk it every day. Some days you limp, some days you fall. But you keep walking. Now, I'm not saying you have to forget everything. I'm not even saying forgiveness means reconciliation. Sometimes, keeping someone out of your life is the healthiest thing you can do. But keeping them in your head, that's self-inflicted punishment. Want to hear something quirky? Octopuses hold grudges. Yep, scientists did a test where they annoyed an octopus with a small object. Weeks later, that same octopus would shoot water jets at the out of spite. So the next time you feel yourself spiraling into rage, ask, do I really want to be outsmarted by an octopus? Look, if you're angry, that's okay. Anger is just energy with a story behind it. But what you do with that energy, that's where the soul either grows or shrinks. You can write a letter and never send it. You can scream into a pillow. You can meditate with your fists clenched, if that's what it takes. But at some point, let it go. Not for them, for you. Because hate is a parasite that feeds on your peace and gives you nothing in return but high cholesterol and insomnia. I once forgave someone who never apologized. And weirdly enough, I slept better that night. It was like my body had been waiting for permission to exhale. And if you're sitting there thinking, but they don't deserve my forgiveness, let me say this. Forgiveness isn't justice, it's freedom. You're not saying what they did was okay. You're just saying it no longer gets to run your nervous system. So tonight, maybe write one name down. Just one. Fold it. Burn it. Bury it under your pillow. Whisper, I'm done dragging this. See what happens. You might wake up feeling a little lighter tomorrow, because sometimes peace doesn't come from adding more, but subtracting what no longer serves your aging, tender, wise heart. There's this odd moment that hits you sometime after 70. You sit down and your body sighs in relief, like you just escaped a burning building. But then, 5 minutes later, you realize you're still sitting 10 minutes, 20, and not because you're resting. You're just there, not tired, not asleep, just still. But not the good kind of still. The heavy, unmotivated, what's the point kind. I used to think laziness was something you outgrow, that it was just a phase kids go through when they're dodging chores. But sloth and torpor, those two twin demons, they evolve with you. They trade in your old teenage excuses for more mature ones. My joints hurt. I've earned the rest. I'll start tomorrow. Except tomorrow turns into next week. And next week turns into what was I even going to start? Sloth is sneaky. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It speaks in warm pillows and daytime. Reruns. And before you know it, your mind turns to fog, and your purpose melts like butter on a hot plate. You're technically alive, but you've left the building mentally. There's this delightful but terrifying academic phrase I once heard, cognitive atrophy due to behavioral inertia. It basically means if you do nothing long enough, your brain forgets how to do anything. And trust me, I've seen it. I once spent an entire winter convincing myself that doing puzzles counted as a life mission. Spoiler, it DOESN. Now, I'm not saying you have to run marathons. I'm not even saying you need to be productive in a capitalist hustle kind of way. I'm just saying that when you stop moving inside and out, you begin to decay, slowly, silently, like a peach left in the back of the fridge. I remember my cousin Paul, sharp as a tack. Loved woodworking, loved storytelling. Then he retired, thought it would be heaven. 6 months in, he stopped shaving, started watching daytime court TV, eventually told me I don't even know what day it is anymore. He wasn't sick. He was still relatively young. But it was like something inside had gone dim. The body follows the mind, and the mind follows the body. When one falls asleep, the other says, "Hey, why bother?" It's like two old friends daring each other to give up. Want a quirky fact? Sloths actual, sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins. That's not relevant to anything, except to remind you, even sloths have talents. And even if you're slowing down, you've still got something inside you that wants to breathe deeply and live fully. I get it, it's not always easy. Some days, getting dressed feels like climbing a mountain. Some days, the sofa looks like a better destination than the mailbox. But still, just move. A little, move your thoughts. Move your legs. Move your furniture if you have to. Here's what helps me. Routine with softness, not rigidity. I wake up, I open the blinds, and if it's cloudy, I stretch. I make my bed. I play one jazz song. I walk outside, even if just to check the mail. I write down one sentence, something I noticed, something I felt. It sounds small, right? But it's sacred, because action is the antidote to apathy. And once you take one step, your body remembers, oh yeah, I can do this. There's this old Zen story about a monk who was depressed. His teacher told him, chop wood, carry water. That's it. Not a sermon, not a lecture. Just do the thing. And slowly, the fog lifted. So tonight, If you're feeling like the weight of the couch has fused into your bones, I invite you to stand up. Shake your arms, wiggle your toes. Say something out loud even if it's just, "Hey, I'm still here because you are." And that stillness inside you, it's not laziness, sits just waiting for permission to become movement again. There was a day clear as glass when I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back at me. Not because of wrinkles or the gray that had taken over my once black hair. No, this was something deeper, a kind of spiritual slippage, a sense that I was no longer ... me. Doubt had crept in. Not the kind that asks, "Where did I put my glasses?" No, this one asks scarier questions. Did any of it matter? Did I make the right choices? Is it too late to change who I've become? This, my friend, is the fourth hindrance, doubt. It comes disguised as intellectual inquiry, but quickly mutates into paralysis. And in your 70s, when time feels both precious and evaporating, doubt doesn't just whisper echoes. The worst part, doubt is persuasive. It sounds logical. It says, "You're too old to start over," or "Why bother now?" It says, "What if you try and fail?" But what it really means is, stay small, stay safe, stay stuck. There's this academic debate that floats around psychological circles whether doubt is a symptom of wisdom or a symptom of fear. I'd argue it's both. Wisdom sees complexity, but fear, it uses complexity as an excuse not to act. One time, I spent nearly a month debating whether to join a local storytelling group. Just an hour a week. But my mind made it into a 3-act Shakespearean drama. What if they don't like my voice? What if I can't remember my story? What if I embarrass myself? You know what happened when I finally went? They clapped, hugged me. One woman said, "I wish my father had talked like you." I nearly cried in the parking lot. Not because I had been brave, but because I'd wasted 29 days in doubt. You know what's funny? Oysters can change sex based on the conditions around them. They literally adapt their identity to survive. But we cling so tightly to our story, what we've done, who we were, what others think we forget that we can adapt. That it's not too late to become someone else, or someone more ourselves. Old age wisdom tells us that certainty is overrated, that you don't need to know how the entire road looks to take the first step. And sometimes, not knowing is a blessing, because when you don't know, you can't assume. You have to feel your way forward. But doubt tricks you into believing you're being smart. Just one more day to think about it, it says. And that's how your life turns into a waiting room. A place where you reread the same magazine of regret. I have this weird trick now. When I feel doubt grabbing the wheel, I say to myself, out loud, "Not today," like I'm refusing a sales call. Because that's all doubt, a persistent voice trying to sell you on playing small. There's a phrase from a Buddhist monk I once heard. You don't have to believe every thought that walks into your mind. Some are just passing through. That one hit me, especially when I realized that many of my doubts weren't even mine. They were echoes of other people's fears, warnings, and disappointments. Your life isn't a courtroom. You don't need a unanimous jury to move forward. You just need one brave voice, yours. So here's something to try. Tomorrow morning, make one decision, any decision you've been avoiding. Sign up for the class. Call the person. Throw away the thing you've been pretending you might need someday. Feel the doubt and do it anyway. Because action kills doubt, Every single time. You're not too old to change. You're too alive not to dot. And if you're still unsure, let me ask you, what would your 20-year-old self want you to do right now? Now go do that. You ever try meditating while a leaf blower is going outside? I have. It's like trying to read poetry in a rock concert. You sit down, close your eyes, take a breath, and then bam, your neighbor decides it's the perfect time to rearrange every molecule of his backyard. Welcome to distraction, my dear listener. The fifth hindrance, and possibly the most modern one. We live in an age where our attention is the most precious and most stolen resource. I used to think retirement meant slowing down. What I didn't realize was that my mind had never learned to be still. It had just traded office noise for phone notifications and reruns of Jeopardy. Here's the thing, restlessness isn't always external. Sometimes the real leaf blower is inside your head. You sit still and suddenly your brain says, "What? About laundry? Did you call Susan? Shouldn't you be drinking more water?" It's like mental popcorn, every thought popping louder than the last dot. Old age wisdom. This one comes from my grandmother. She'd sit on her porch every evening, watching the sunset, not talking, not planning, just being. I once asked her, "Aren't you bored?" She smiled and said, "No, I'm busy listening to the quiet." At the time, I didn't get it. Now, that woman was a mindfulness ninja. There's an overtly academic phrase for this one too. Attentional fragmentation through hyperstimulus exposure, which basically means our brains are fried from too much input, and you'd think turning 70 would shield you from that. But nope. Now it's grandkids texting, group chats buzzing, and YouTube suggesting 73 videos that you might also like. One quirky fact I'll throw in. Goldfish have longer attention spans than humans. I know. I laughed too. But it's true. Recent studies say the average person now struggles to stay focused for more than 8 seconds. We're losing 2 goldfish. Folks, so what do we do about it? First, forgive yourself. You're not broken. Your attention isn't gone, it's just been hijacked. Reclaiming it is a process, not a performance. I started by doing one thing a day without multitasking. Eating without a screen. Walking without music. Washing dishes with full awareness. Sounds boring. Try it. There's magic in the mundane. You start to notice things. The texture of the plate, the warmth of the water, the little thoughts that float bubbles. And just like that, your life becomes yours again. Not the algorithms, not the news cycles, yours. I remember one evening, I sat in a chair for 10 minutes, doing absolutely nothing, not meditating, not planning, just sitting. At first, it felt wrong, like I was wasting time. But then I realized I wasn't wasting it. I was reclaiming it. That moment, that was mine. And it didn't need to be productive to be precious. And here's the kicker. Distraction isn't just about wasted time. It's about missed presence. How many sunsets have you missed because your mind was thinking about dinner? How many conversations did you half hear while scrolling through your phone? We think presence requires effort, but really, it requires surrender. Letting go of the need to be entertained. Letting go of that nagging sense that silence is awkward. Here's what I've learned. Peace isn't hiding in some faraway retreat, center, or fancy technique. It's right here, in the breath you just took, in the sound of your fridge humming, in the warmth of your socks. So tonight, I want you to try something. After this video ends, don't click anything else. Just sit. For 1 minute. Close your eyes. breathe. Feel what it feels like to do nothing and not need to fix that. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're just distracted. And the good news, focus is something we can practice, like a muscle, like a song we haven't sung in a while. And the more we choose silence over noise, breath over buzz, stillness over scrolling, the stronger we become. One evening, I caught myself staring at an empty plate. Dinner was over, but I wasn't ready to move. Not out of fullness, but a strange sense of emptiness. Not sadness exactly, but something subtler, something quieter. A feeling I hadn't wanted to name for years. Loneliness. That's the sixth hindrance. And honestly, it's the one nobody wants to admit. We talk about cholesterol and blood pressure like badges of honor, but loneliness, that's a whisper we tuck beneath the smile. After 70, people start disappearing. Some move away, some pass on, and some just fade from your calendar like old appointments. But here's the tricky part. You can be surrounded by people and still feel like a ghost at your own party. Loneliness doesn't always look like solitude. Sometimes it looks like a room full of people who stopped really seeing you. One time, I sat at a family barbecue, plastic plate in hand, and realized no one had asked me a real question in over an hour. It was all weather, sports, pass the ketchup. I felt like a decoration, an old trophy on the shelf. There's this term that's gained traction in geriatric psychology: social invisibility. The idea that as people age, they become increasingly unseen, not in the literal sense, but emotionally. It hit me hard, because I wasn't just missing companionship, I was missing connection. Want an offbeat fact? In Japan, some elderly folks commit petty crimes like shoplifting just to go to jail. Why? Because in prison, they find structure, meals, and most tragically someone to talk to. Let that sink in. But loneliness doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's just a quiet absence of laughter, a silence between calls, a dinner table with one plate. Here's where the story twists. I started volunteering once a week at a library, just shelving books, chatting with curious strangers. And wouldn't you know it, the loneliness started to melt. Not because I was constantly surrounded by people, but because I was needed. Being useful isn't just about productivity, it's about belonging, and that's something they don't teach you when you retire. That usefulness is oxygen for the spirit, old age. Wisdom tells us this. The heart shrinks in isolation and expands in presence. You don't need a crowd, you just need someone who sees you, someone who listens, or even better, someone who needs your listening. You don't need to become a therapist or a monk. You just need to be present. Invite a neighbor for tea. Call someone instead of texting. Tell your story, even if you think it's boring. Because someone out there is starving to hear something real. I met a man once who said, "I don't want more friends. I just want one who asks me how I really am." That stuck with me. Loneliness tricks you into thinking you're the only one feeling it. But here's the truth. We're all a little lonely. Especially now. Especially in a world where we scroll through smiles, but forget to reach out in real life. So tonight, if the room feels too quiet, if your shadow feels like your only company, remember this: you are not forgotten. You are not too late. Somewhere, someone is waiting to hear your voice. But they don't know you're lonely. You have to speak first. One sentence, one call, one shared silence over coffee. You don't need the whole world. You just need one connection to remind you you're still here and you still matter. It all came to a head one morning when I bent down to tie my shoe and couldn't get back up without grunting like a wounded walrus. That's when I realized something most people my age don't like to admit. We don't lose strength because we age. We lose strength because we stop moving. The final hindrance is inertia, not the physics kind, though yes, objects at rest do tend to stay at rest, but the soul-deep kind, the quiet surrender that says, I'm too tired, let someone else do it. Let me tell you what inertia looks like. It's waking up, moving from bed to chair to TV, back to bed again. It's promising you'll go for a walk tomorrow, for 37 days in a row. It's the dusty treadmill that's become a glorified coat rack. The academic world calls this behavioral withdrawal in late life. It's a fancy way of saying we give up on effort because the rewards feel too far away. But that's the catch. The reward is in the doing, not the outcome. I started small. I walked from my mailbox to the end of the street. Day one, I got winded halfway there and had to pretend I was admiring a squirrel just to catch my breath. But I didn't stop. 3 weeks later, I was walking around the entire block. A month after that, I climbed a hill and laughed at myself, out loud, alone, like a lunatic. Why? Because the hill didn't beat me. Because I remembered what power felt like. Here's a quirky fact. Sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins. Yep, sloths, the masters of slow motion. But guess what? They still move. They still climb. They're not dead, they're deliberate. You want to outlive the average. Move, not like a marathoner, like a person reclaiming their fire. I started doing my dishes by hand again. Not because I hate my dishwasher, but because standing, scrubbing, drying it made me feel useful, active, alive. And isn't that what we're really after? The problem is, comfort becomes a trap. The recliner that was meant for relaxing becomes a cage. The routines that once offered stability become shackles. You think you're preserving your energy, but really, you're just slowly powering down. Old age wisdom tells us that stillness isn't always peace. Sometimes, it's just stagnation dressed in a robe. One day, I passed a mirror and caught sight of my own reflection. Not just the shape of me, but the spirit of me. I stood taller, not because I'd grown younger, but because I'd stopped shrinking, and all it took was motion. Daily, humble, intentional motion. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. Inertia is the most seductive lie of them all. It tells you to rest, to wait, to sit. But every time you move, you send a signal to your cells, your brain, your heart. I'm not done yet. So if you can walk. If you can stretch. If all you can do is raise your arms in bed, then raise them like you mean it. Because every movement is a rebellion against decay. You're not here to fade quietly. You're here to finish strong down. Before we go, let me say this. I've faced all 5 hindrances: desire, aversion, sloth, doubt, and distraction, and now loneliness and inertia. And guess what? They're still there. Some days, they're louder than others. But now I know their names. And that means I can choose to speak back. You can too. You're not alone. You're not broken. You're not finished. So tomorrow, wake up, move, breathe, connect, and whisper to yourself, I still matter. And now, as the night wraps around us like a soft blanket, I just want to remind you aging isn't a punishment, it's a privilege. You've made it this far not because life has been easy, but because you are resilient. So be kind to yourself. Let stillness be your friend, not your fear. Rest your thoughts. Rest your body. You've earned that. Tomorrow is another chance to rise, to stretch, to smile at something small. So take a deep breath and let it all go for now. I'll be right here when you need me again. Sleep well, friend. Good night.